and program management platform to help support, no surprises, the portfolio and program management for organisations. Verto also supports senior leaders with strategic planning and can also help to manage change and transformation within an organisation. Just admitting a couple more people there. Hello to those who have just joined. So that being said, these webinars won't necessarily focus always on the tool itself, but rather the surrounding elements that probably deserve equal consideration for those in the PPM space. And honestly, things that come up with our clients time and time again. Today is a key element, key in that area. We're actually going to be focusing on the implementation of a platform and then how to embed that successfully. So the journey through that. On that note, those who are doing all the hard graft today are my two colleagues who I am going to pass over to shortly to introduce themselves. First, though, just a little bit, let me just admit this person, lovely, hello there. Just a little bit of housekeeping. Do pop any questions that you have into the Q&A. We will endeavour to get through as many of those as we can at the end of the webinar. Also, we're going to be sending you a little pack of information. It's related to today's topic, of course. We'll send you that on email in the coming days. So please do look out for that. For now, though, I'm going to pass you over to Tasha and Craig before popping back to me to run you through the agenda. So over to you, Tasha.
Hi, everybody. I'm Tasha Osborne. I'm Head of Client Success here at Verto. My main focus really is on the strategic side of things. So when we're embedding Verto in organisations, I'm looking at the key strategic goals, the problems that you're looking to solve as an organisation, and making sure that the platform actually helps you meet those strategic goals that you have. Craig?
Thanks, Tasha. My name's Craig Dixon. I'm a product specialist here at Verto. I've been here for around 6 years, but I've also been part of project, program, and even PMO teams in past roles in the public sector. And I've been part of embedding a PPM platform in a local authority quite a few years ago now. So I'm really keen to go through this webinar with you, share some nuggets of information that we found to hopefully unlock some more secrets and some tips into how you guys can successfully embed the platform, whether you're on your way or whether you've not even started. So yeah, I'm keen to get into it and see what questions you have as we go through the session. Thanks, Laura.
Thank you both. That's great. Okay, so just to talk you through what we're going to cover today, we're going to start with implementation. We'll be exploring what successful implementation actually looks like and why that is just the beginning. We'll be moving on to helping you make it stick, so really embedding that platform and understanding what it takes to move from we've launched to this is now the way we work. Moving on from that, how do you sustain that culture change? So we're going to discover how to reinforce the adoption within your organisation, how to support your people on that journey, and then just keep that momentum going long after going live with the new platform. Then next on to learning how organisations get it right. We work with loads of organisations, great organisations that really do it well. And they know, as we know, it's not just about getting the right tool, choosing the right tool. It's about making it a long-term successful venture. Finally, we will be finishing off with a Q&A for you all. So like I said, we'll try and get through as many as we possibly can. It's all about what questions you really want to ask, though, your challenges. So hopefully we can work through those together. So without further ado, over to you guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. So yeah, I think Laura touched on an important point there from an embedding perspective. It starts a lot sooner than you may initially think. Even before the implementation. So we look at the pre-implementation side of things, and there's some questions and some considerations that you need to think about before you make the decision to jump in, choose a tool, and start the implementation process. What you'll see here and throughout the session is not a foolproof list, These are some key areas that we think are of importance, but if there is anything that you guys would like to add, some value adds for people on the call as well, please feel free to drop those in as part of your questions as they come through. So one of the first things to think about from implementation and embedding is, what problem are you trying to solve? So what has led to you saying, right, I need to implement a tool, I need to look for a solution? Is there a specific event that's happened that's pushed this to the forefront of your mind? Is there some challenges that you're currently undertaking in the organization? Are you struggling with efficiency, with manual processes, making the most out of the teams that you've got? We hear the mantra of doing more with less, right? And so that could be a reason why, and a problem that you're trying to solve. So for me, that would be one of the initial questions that you should ask yourself before you even look at implementing a tool. The next one is, why is it important? So what is this going to bring? What change is this going to bring about? What improvements is this going to make? It will often move beyond just solving the problem. You'll find a bit of a domino effect in terms of, when you solve problems, there are lots of other benefits, and those are really important when it comes to embedding a tool successfully. So why is it important that you get this tool on board? Do you have frameworks in place? Now, this is one where you might have a range of different answers depending on where you're at. So the answer may be yes, we've got a solid framework, we're using spreadsheets and things like that to manage how we work and stuff. There might be the other side of the coin where you don't have a framework and you're not sure where to start. That doesn't disqualify you from pushing forward. It's just important to consider when you move forward. So do you have a framework in place to allow you to successfully manage your projects and your programs? And that ties in nicely with the next point around the processes around that framework. A framework is great, but how it's going to be delivered, what are those steps, what are those processes that you're going to follow and adhere to make sure that that framework is being deployed consistently across the organization? And are those processes something that can be embedded within a tool, that the tool can support and prop up? So those two almost sort of come hand in hand together, and they really do have a strong relationship. You don't need to answer yes to all of these. I think if you can't figure out the problem and why it's important, I think those would be, for me, the MVP in terms of what you're looking for, right? Yeah. But the frameworks, you don't have to have a 15, 20-page methodology detailing every aspect of every process and step in the organization. Being aware of where you're at is a great starting point, and it allows you and the partners that you work with to go on the journey together and to help improve and enhance those, which will again make the embedding of any tool more successful.
I think just to add to that as well, actually, you don't need to know exactly what frameworks and methodology you're going to be following. You don't necessarily, it's good to have a good understanding of where you are right now. You don't necessarily need to have really set goals for where you want to get to, but it's good to have a high level understanding of, we are here now, and this is where we'd like to be, and start thinking about some timelines and some actual key things that you'd like to achieve by bringing in a platform like, a PPM platform to manage your projects.
100%. And the final point, definitely last but not the least, is, does your workforce understand those processes? So are the people that you're bringing on this journey aware of the processes, of the frameworks, and even the two questions at the top? So is everyone moving in the same direction? Are you all aware of some of the main problems and challenges? Are you all aware why it's so important that you've decided to make this decision to move forward? And I think once you can answer these questions to a degree of certainty, depending on the question that's being asked, you're setting yourself up to successfully implement a tool that will be fit for purpose and that will actually allow you to be successful moving forward. So the next element that we'd like to talk about is the difference between implementation and embedding. And I think I'm going to ask Tasha to dance on this one.
Thanks, Craig. So we all know that implementing a platform or a tool is really important. So, you have to understand the steps that you're going to take in order to roll the platform out, to build it, to integrate it. But actually, there's a secondary part of that, which is embedding the tool. So I think if we can look at what the difference between implementation versus embedding is, that's going to be really helpful for you guys today, hopefully. So let's take a look at what implementation means. So implementation is essentially, it's a project. So, you've got an end date, you have a fixed goal, you have a team of people who are specialists in what they're doing. They understand what they need to achieve. you know, they need to go live with this platform by a specific date. Here are the benefits that they're looking to achieve. It's very contained and they know exactly what they're doing. You've got a good focus on rollout and setup. You know who needs to be involved. You understand your key stakeholders. You know that you need strategic, the strategic drive from the top. You've got your leadership involved at all times. They're very excited. They're very keen to roll this out. They understand the importance. Generally, there's a bit of an air of excitement around a project like that when you're bringing in something new and exciting, and you've got all this excitement around how much change it's going to bring. So implementation itself, really important. Of course, there's challenges. You've got to figure out the technical challenges. You've got to figure out the initial culture change, bringing people on, moving people forward. However, it's all contained in kind of a set project, and you can record the risks, your issues, all the standard things that you'd expect to see.
Exactly. And I think the one thing to mention with implementation is that normally there's an end in sight. Whereas when you're embedding a tool, sometimes it can feel like there is no end in sight, right? And so there is an important difference between the two. And the only other thing to mention is that when you implement, you're setting yourself up to successfully embed the tool. If you don't get the implementation right, if you don't bring people along the journey, then you will find that you're setting yourself up for a more difficult journey of successfully embedding the tool and making sure that it sticks and it's being used and it's being adopted in the right way.
Yeah, absolutely. So what's the difference then between implementation and embedding? So embedding is all about making the platform the way that your organization works. It's not about it being yet another tool that people, oh, well, it's just something else I've got to add data to. I preferred using the spreadsheets that I was using before. I don't want to change. It's about making it, actually, we really enjoy using this. It's making my life easier. So it's about thinking about the continuous improvement of the platform itself. It's about keeping that focus on sustained adoption. And it's much more challenging when you don't have an end date in sight, as Craig was saying. This is something that's just got to continually happen. You've got to keep an eye on it. What can happen and what can cause these things to fall down is you successfully launch a platform and everybody loves it and it's great for the first 3 to 6 months, maybe even the first year. And then because it's working, people step back from that process and there isn't that continued focus and drive on making it something that people want to continue to use. Perhaps there's a bit of a loss of sight of it evolving with you as your processes evolve. We all know that project management and change never stays still, continuously evolving. And if your platform doesn't evolve with you, you're never going to be able to make that kind of default way of working for your organization. It's also, I would say, much more challenging because you don't have that set kind of stakeholder group that you have when you're looking at implementation. Now, when you're looking at implementation, you know your key stakeholders. Potentially, you've got a pilot group or a group of users who are very keen to start using it. When you have to roll out and continue to embed that platform, you're talking about working with a much larger group of people who have got much bigger challenges or different challenges, and you have to learn how to address individual needs versus making sure that everybody's working in a consistent way that's going to meet the organization's strategic goals at the end of the day. But it's about bringing people along on that journey. And it's a very different challenge than the initial implementation challenge of getting people excited about something. It's about maintaining that excitement.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the final point I'll mention on this is that it's about not losing sight of that. And Tasha, you mentioned maybe losing the stakeholders and it turns into BAU when you move into embedding, right? So people don't put that same focus on it, but it's absolutely vital that you make sure that people are constantly looking at this, maybe akin to a long-term project, so that they don't lose sight of it. Making sure that your stakeholders, your champions are continuously engaged and bought in and they're actively aware of their role post-implementation. You don't go live, launch a system, and then just it becomes BAU and that's it, right? And so as part of the implementation process, letting people know that there is a longer journey that we're going on that will go beyond the successful go live where everyone pops a bottle of champagne or says hurrah and things like that. It's all about being able to make sure people are bought in, right? Because implementation and embedding, it's only as good as the people around it, right? So you will see a little bit later on, it's about culture change, it's about change management. And what's that? It's about people, it's about process structures around everything that we do. And one of the least important things, if I'm being honest, is the tool itself. It's everything around it that makes it successful.
Yeah, I would absolutely 100% agree. I mean, you do have to get the tool right. And we're going to talk about all of this actually in a bit more detail as we go through. But Craig's absolutely right. You've got to make sure that there's sustained focus. And actually, I would say that one of the key things for me, and it's the last point here actually on the screen, is that change needs to be reinforced by user behavior, but also it needs to be reinforced from the top down. So as soon as you lose that strategic drive, that strategic influence, people start to fall away from using it. So you have to make sure, and this is actually a responsibility of senior leadership, I would say, in organizations, is that they take it upon themselves to understand that to get the information that they need to get to hit the goals that they're looking for the organization to meet, that they need to be actively involved in using the tool, promoting the tool, understanding the benefits of the tool, and getting people to use that so that they can get the information that they need. If you're not getting that drive from the top, it's very easy for people to go back to old habits, the way that they used to work.
Exactly.
So I think just to round this kind of slide off, I'd say that there's a very clear difference between implementation and embedding. You will face some what at first glance seem like similar challenges, but actually they do require different ways of solving the problems and different ways of looking at it. So definitely worth considering that. And sorry, Craig, but just one final thing from me is, while you're implementing and you're looking at your implementation project, absolutely be considering your change management plan the whole way through. Do those things in parallel. You should be thinking about, and what does our our rollout plan look like for the first launch? But actually, what does our plan look like to keep people engaged, to bring people on board? What does that look like for the first 12 months, the first 2 years? Don't be thinking about just short term. Actually have a clear plan about how you intend to sustain that focus on the platform.
Definitely. So the next step is to see what you guys think about a particular question that we've got. So we'd like to see what thoughts you have. So we've got a poll that I believe Laura should be turning on right now. Laura, perfect time.
So you should see that now on your screen. So the first poll, we just wanted to get your thoughts, get your engagement levels up and everything like that. So this one's focused around implementation. So what has been or might be the biggest challenge when implementing a new PPM platform for your organization? Now, we're very aware that on today's webinar, we might have some of you that are just starting. You haven't even started thinking about it. Maybe your boss has asked you to do some research and this webinar just came up at the right time. You might be in the thick of it. You might be right in the middle of your journey and it might be going well. It might not be. You might have done it once before and you're just reflecting and looking back, and maybe there's a bit of like I say, reflection to do. Wherever you are, think about it from a personal point of view, from your organization. What has been, might be, or is the biggest challenge that your organization will face, and it's just for implementation. So I'll give you a couple of moments here. So maybe your workforce doesn't understand the process. Maybe there's a lack of leadership buy-in, something that Tasha just mentioned just then. Is training and support the issue, or are there no processes in place for the tool to support, or are the benefits of the tool unclear?
Don't forget as well that this is from an implementation perspective, right? So we're not on that implementation embedding track right now. So this is all about what you think the biggest challenge when implementing a new system. If you've done it before, then you might be a little bit more aware of this. You might have felt those pains directly. But if not, what do you think would stand out as a potential biggest challenge? Do you think not having lack of leadership buy-in would mean there's not a focus, there's not a drive to get it moving? If the workforce don't understand what you're doing, how much of an impact do you think that would mean from an implementation perspective? So focus on it from that implementation perspective. We've got another one coming up where we're going to shift that focus 180 to the embedding side of things.
Yeah.
We can see here that there's seems to be a bit of a skew towards lack of leadership buying, although it's coming back now from a workforce not understanding the processes. So there seems to be two clear horses in the race. I'd be keen to see if there's any others that creep in the last few seconds.
It doesn't surprise me that lack of leadership buy-in is up there at the top, if I'm honest. It's something that we come across often. And there are strategies that you can put in place to help that. And we'll discuss some of those a little bit later on. But yeah, that's not a surprise for me at all.
Lovely.
I wouldn't be surprised if we see similar results in the next poll as well, but let's see how we go.
Oh, okay. We just had a late entry there. Training and support has just had one or two entries there. So, and another one. So I think we'll probably close the poll now. I think that's probably it. But yeah, lack of leadership buy-in. All right, back over to you guys.
Lack of leadership buy-in doesn't surprise me at all. As I said, we're going to talk about some strategies as we go a little bit further. Training and support is also an interesting one. And I think actually one of the key challenges around training and support that I see from our clients regularly is actually the resource around that. It's really resource intensive, and it can be quite challenging to understand, right? There's lots of different people in this organization, all of them learn in different ways. How do we support those users to make sure that they can interact with the tool in the right way, and how do we give them training that supports them in their learning styles? So definitely some interesting things to think about with training support.
Definitely. This is actually a great segue to the next slide, really. So we've spoken about the biggest challenge, and you saw it was fairly close to the end, right? But it was that leadership buy-in. So what we see happening when organizations get it right, funny enough, leading from the top and getting that right. So ensuring that your leaders champion the platform's use, ensure that they're really bought in, that they're really invested, they understand why they're doing it. And that can then cascade and roll out across other leaders and across other teams and departments in the organization. That leadership from the top is really important in everything. And we also think it's really vital from an implementation and an embedding perspective.
Yeah, I mean, I'd absolutely say that having worked with, some of our clients quite closely, obviously, some of the things that those leaders who positively reinforce the change that's coming do is they make those key decisions early on around how they're going to promote the platform. So, we've worked with organizations where their senior leaders have gone in and done podcasts and testimonials about how much benefit people are going to get out of the tool. They're always visible and reinforcing the message. And there may well be, key decisions made as to whether they're going to mandate the tool or whether they're going to make it something that, there's particular reporting or elements that need to come out of Verto. So it's all about that positive reinforcement that we've seen successful organizations do.
Exactly. And it's not jumping in, mandating it, stepping back and coming back and seeing the fruits of the labor at the end. They need to be invested. They need to be on the journey with us, part of the team, if you will. So the next step that you would have seen there in terms of an early reveal would have been the considered rollout approach. So please take care and have a thought in mind regarding rollout and implementation. Try to think through how you're going to roll out and implement the solution. Are you doing it from a phased perspective? Are you looking at starting with certain departments who are likely to be more on board? How are you looking to roll it out wider? Beyond that, how can you adapt based on the feedback that you're getting, right? As you're rolling something out, you are probably going to get live real-time feedback, and having the ability to adapt as you move through ensures that you're more likely to be successful, not only from an implementation, but even beyond that when you're embedding a tool, making sure that channel and that avenue for feedback is always there to support that ongoing rollout.
I'd absolutely say that one of the key things that's taken into consideration by our really successful clients is actually thinking about we're implementing a huge culture change. Normally, when you embed a platform, you're moving away from something simple like spreadsheets or other tools like that. So it's already a huge change. If you try and bring in a system and you add lots of over complications and make it quite challenging, how well are your users going to adapt to that? So I'd say one of the key things to think about from a considered rollout approach is what do you need to start with? You can build on it. If you can successfully launch a platform that gives you what you need to start with, that's simple, intuitive to use, and then iterate on that, it's going to be much more successful for you in the long term, I would suggest.
Definitely. One of the next ones, and I think this is a really important one that's not to be underestimated. It's clearly communicating those benefits. It's making sure that you're not only having regular communications with the teams and the people that are coming along the journey, but taking the time to make sure that everyone understands what this is going to bring about, what this change is going to influence, and the benefits they're going to get from that. And it's not just from a leadership perspective, right? And it's not just from everything around them. Why does it benefit them? Get them invested. What is it going to give back to them? Is it going to make themselves more efficient? Is it going to help collaboration? What is it going to do that's directly going to impact them? And if they clearly understand the benefits and the improvements that it's going to bring to the way they work and the journey that they're on, then they are more likely to be less resistant to change, more likely to come on board that journey, and to be part of the ongoing benefits around embedding the tool long term.
Yeah, I would suggest that for users, I mean, let's be honest, the high level strategic goals when you're implementing a platform like this is you want great reporting, you want to understand benefits analysis, you want to have great MI. And often, the end users who are inputting that data are, they can be a bit like, yeah, I get that, but so I can give you that from this. What's in it for me? How is this going to make my life easier as a project manager, as a business analyst, as a key stakeholder in something? So it's about understanding how to clearly communicate that message. And it may well be that you have to think about personalized approaches to different levels of stakeholder. And I'd say as part of that change management plan that I mentioned earlier, you should be considering who are our stakeholders who are going to be using this tool, and what do each of them need to get out of it, and how do we communicate that to them? And just last thought on this, if that's all right, is the best way for you to clearly communicate the benefits of how it's, the positive impact that it's going to have on a user is to get your users to do that for you. Find some champions, find some people who are really, really positive about what the tool can do, how it's helping them, and get them to tell everybody else. Get them to record some testimonials, get them to do some, face-to-faces or some training or some champions. The clients that we've worked with that have been super successful have had, learning pages or pages in their tool which have got full of testimonials or day in the life, as a project manager, this is how it helps me, this is the time I'm saving. Your biggest advocates are your users, and they're going to be able to help you drive that positive message the best way.
Definitely. The next thing that we'd like to talk about is aligning to business processes. So is this going to effectively support the processes and the frameworks that you have in place to ensure it's a success? And so ensuring that tool can be catered to that, and when you're embedding and continuously improving and reviewing that solution, that it continues to be able to meet those requirements as those processes and those sections of activities change and flow. And that moves up the chain as well, not just the business process, but ensuring the strategic alignment. Is everything you're doing from a tool and a platform perspective working towards ensuring those strategic goals as well?
Just don't overcomplicate it.
Exactly.
Think about the language that you're using when you're aligning this to your processes. Use that day-to-day language in the tool. Make it simple for people to get on board and start using it quickly.
Exactly. And the final thing that we've got on this slide is all about support. So it's making sure that the right support mechanisms are in place, that they're easily accessible, and that there's different types of support available, so that regardless of who you're working with, of the teams and the dynamics of the people involved, there is a support mechanism that they'll be comfortable with. I think what Natasha mentioned earlier about advocates is really important, and champions, and having those champions involved and in place. They can almost be that conduit, that middleman between the teams, the wider user base, the core group of stakeholders, in terms of being able to give them support. Have regular opportunities for people to come in, maybe have the opportunity to submit feedback, whether that's anonymously, whether that's joining a 1 hour conversation every quarter or every month, whatever it might be, to be able to give them the right avenues to ensure that they're always supported. Yeah. So from the next perspective, we'd like to talk about ensuring that the embedding piece specifically is successful. And we'll go through these. There's quite a few things to focus on, but they are all important in their own right. And the first thing is, in order to ensure a successful embedding of a solution, it needs to be intuitive and easy to use. It needs to be something that the user base are comfortable with using. If they're not comfortable, if it don't feel intuitive, if they can't get going with it quickly, chances are when they're away from the limelight, when the implementation has faded away and you're into that continuous use of the tool, you might find them reverting to type. You might think they're using the tool and you'll dig deeper and realize that they're probably still using a spreadsheet for some bits and pieces, and then they're putting it in last minute and then they're calling up people to help to get it done, and they're resisting that. So by making sure it's intuitive and easy to use really does support that process. It makes people want to use the tool, right?
I'd absolutely agree. The only thing I'd add to that actually is just when you're designing the tool, bring your users in to help you. Ask them how they would like it to be worded. Ask them what they'd like in the help. They are the ones who are going to be using it day to day. They're the ones who are going to be able to help you design it.
Exactly. The next thing, we've mentioned it before, and you will notice themes from those previous slides because there are connections there. Offer training and support. Make sure that there are the relevant channels that people can go down to ensure that they're able to get what they need. Is that self-serve opportunities so that they have the opportunities to go and watch videos, to go and learn through articles and screenshots and things like that? Do they work better in learning in an actual environment, a training environment with people together working through in almost like a classroom style approach? Make sure that you've got the different training and support mechanisms in place to ensure that people are comfortable to find out more and to be able to ask questions and challenge things and give their feedback on a regular basis.
Yeah, only thing I'd add to that is about collateral.
Yes.
Think about your collateral. So think about your training videos, your training articles, how you're working with people. And, the platform, if they've got their own help system, make the use of that. Don't reinvent the wheel. Do as many things to make it easy for you as possible. But as Craig was saying, think about your users' learning styles and how they're going to interact with that.
Exactly. It needs to be ongoing as well. Can't just be dropped and do it for 3 months and then not think about it again or do an annual refresher. It needs to be an ongoing thing that you're constantly thinking about. And even from an onboarding perspective of new starters, make sure you've got that in place and that set in stone so that when new people are coming on board, the right training and the right support is there so they can hit the ground running, right?
Yeah, I think I'm conscious of our time, but I don't want to kind of gloss over this point. I think it's really important to accept at the very beginning, when you've made the decision to bring a tool in, accept the fact that it's going to be an ongoing process, accept the fact that there's going to have to be time invested in it long term. And the more that you do up front to plan that and understand what you're doing, the less time intensive it will be trying to catch up if something happens later on down the line.
Exactly. Change management, a big piece, and we'll come on to that a little bit later. So we'll talk about it very briefly here. Embedding a tool successfully is all about managing the change and the ongoing change as well, especially with new people coming on board. So it's about making sure that the support process is there. That change management plan is absolutely vital, not just for implementation. When that initial change and that shock to the system of something coming in that's changing how people work, it's the ongoing side of things. So we'll talk about that a little bit later, but change management is really important, and it's all about communication, collaboration, making people feel valued and feel involved, and that leadership buy-in as well really does have a big impact on change management too.
Absolutely.
So encourage usage in meetings as well as reporting as well. So making sure you're reinforcing that message and encouraging people to get in to use the system, reminding them of the benefits that they've got and that the opportunities they have to make their lives better, to make their working day better, more efficient, and to really just promote the benefits of that tool on an ongoing basis to ensure that they understand that they're not just doing something for some other reason, that it's given back to them and that there is that benefit from them using it as well. So making sure you're constantly encouraging usage is really important.
Yeah.
Continuous improvement, we've mentioned it before and it's come up in a lot of these points, so we won't labor on this too much, but continuously improving everything that we've spoken about. We've caveated that with the fact that it's ongoing, right? And so normally when you're implementing something, it may seem a little bit more transformative, but once you've implemented and you're embedding, that continuous improvement is really important. Those marginal gains that you get from the review process, the feedback, the ongoing training, the ongoing support, all of that really does play a part in making sure the system stays relevant, making sure it stays beneficial, and making sure that you're not dropping the ball and looking at something 12 months later saying, okay, we've got to do a transformative process again, right? Transformation is something that will happen a lot, but a successful transformation will lead to continuous improvement on an ongoing basis after that, right?
And if you have a tool that's flexible enough to keep up with your evolving processes, great, make the most of that. You know, if you have to change it, if one of your processes change, don't wait, as Craig says, 6 months to change it in the tool. Make that change straight away, and it will remain relevant. It will remain, something that's useful for your people to be using.
Exactly. And there's all things about having groups of people. We mentioned making sure the stakeholders are bought in on an ongoing basis, right? Making sure there's the channels to do those reviews, to continuously improve. Don't just have a meeting once a year. Make sure that there are ample opportunities for you to take a step back, have a look at how everything is going, and to make effective decisions to make sure those improvements come in place regularly rather than sporadically. And then the final point is recognizing adoption. Not much more to add apart from recognize adoption. Provide opportunities to shout about the people that are successfully using the tool, the benefits that has brought about, the improvements that it's had on a program of works, and how they've managed to successfully implement the works that they're doing and things like that. Making sure that recognition is provided to give people the confidence that it's being noticed, you're being heard, you're being seen, and it's not just a silent benefit that's going off. So being vocal about that and recognizing adoption is really important as well.
And what the last point on that, what that will also get you to have is that, oh, they're doing so well. I really want to be doing that. I need to be getting this information out. I need my team to be doing this well, and it's actually going to promote the tool as well as providing recognition to those people who are successfully using it. So, you're getting the best of both worlds.
Exactly. And you'll notice that we've seen it before where a tool's implemented for a single department. And then once they've gone live and they're using it in reports, all of a sudden you'll see the other department heads look around and go, oh, how did you do that? It takes us hours to get that done. Oh, it took us 10 minutes, right? And so all of a sudden being able to recognize and promote that, it can help with that change resistance as well. People who may have been reluctant to go through in the first side of things. So that's really important. Now, moving on to the next areas, there's two different perspectives we'd like to take. The first one is from a strategic top-level perspective. So the first one that we've got here is, are your stakeholders invested? Are they bought in? Are everyone aware? So when we're talking strategic, like we said, we're talking from that top-level thought process and things to consider. Making sure your stakeholders are invested, making sure they're bought in and they understand not only the journey they're going on, but why they're going on it and what's going to happen at the other end, roles and responsibilities, making sure everyone's clear on all those areas. Does your leadership team know why and what they need from the platform is really important as well. If they're not sure, you're not going to get that buy-in, you're not going to get that leadership from the front. Normally what you'll find is there's a single advocate. Now that may be a project or a program manager. It could be a director, senior level individual as well. But oftentimes it's not everyone on that round table. And so making sure that the full leadership team are aware of what they need from the platform and echoing the points that we mentioned earlier about why is it important, what problem we're looking to solve is a really important perspective. Has a standard approach been defined? So have you been able to standardize some processes that the tool is going to follow and follow through with? Standard, repeatable process, regardless of what you do, leads to better results. And has that been defined? If not, again, it's not a one-stop shop. Knowing that you haven't been able to define it will then form part of the journey of implementation and continuous improvement. How will you ensure teams feel valued and included? So are you going to include them at the start? Are you going to tell them about it a week before it's going live and they're being told they're going on training tomorrow? Wouldn't recommend that. Making sure that they're included at the earliest point, they're aware of what's coming. So they don't feel that sense of shell shock. Oh, right, okay, next week I'm going from this to that. Making sure that they feel not only informed, but also like they're part of it, like they can contribute, like they can provide feedback. And there's lots of things that can come off of that around getting them involved, open sessions, workshops, feedback opportunities and stuff like that that's really valuable. Have champions and early adopter groups been identified? Whatever you do from an implementation and an embedding perspective, making sure you've got those champions in those areas really does help push the successful use of the solution out. It may even be a channel that people choose to adopt. So they might choose to just communicate with their champions, and the champions take that feedback through. So they are really valuable, and they can get you through to the information you may not be finding at the top. And then the final thing is about continuous improvement. So we've mentioned it before, but how will you continuously improve? What will you set up? What will you define to ensure that that's at the forefront of your mind as you're embedding a solution? Now, the next perspective isn't from the strategic level. It's all about from the PPM community, the teams, the day-to-day people on the ground, the program managers and everything in between. So I'll pass that over to Tasha to talk through.
Yeah, you might be thinking, well, it's the same considerations, but it's not. These are the people who can be using the tool on a day-to-day basis, and they've got a very different kind of user case for it. So we're interested in understanding, so you should be thinking, sorry, do they know what the new platform's for? So not just the high-level strategic, although that's important that they understand the bigger picture, but do they know what it's for them as well? And then next, do they know how to use it? Seems like an obvious one, but, you know, are they going to be aware of how easy it is to use? Is it going to complicate things for them? So do they know how to use it to manage their work? Are they aware of the benefits it's going to bring? Both strategically, of course, it's important that your workforce understand what they're contributing to the bigger picture. It makes everyone feel, you know, like the job they're doing is important. So absolutely make that clear. But as we've talked about a couple of times now throughout, really important to make sure that they understand the benefits to them as individuals as well. Do they understand the language and the methodology that it's there to support? Really important. I've said this a couple of times and I will say it again. Make it simple. Use the language that people are using day to day. There's no point having a system in place if it's too complicated for people to enter data into, basically. And this kind of leads on to, is it built to reflect the work that they're doing? It's great to sit down as a project team and think, oh, we'd really like it if it did this and it did that. And then you have a team going, yeah, but actually, I can't manage my work in there because it doesn't have this, this, or this, which I need. Make sure you're consulting your users. Make sure that you're building the tool to reflect the work that they're actually doing. It seems really obvious, but you'd be surprised how often we see that not happening. And finally, do they know where to get help? It's good to have that initial training and support, but do they know where they can, where they can go to get help afterwards? 6 months down the line, is it obvious where the clear channels of communication are? Do they know where to go to get help about the tool, or if they've got ideas for improvement? Make sure that your lines of communication are clear, open, and manned at all times.
Exactly. So I want to make sure that you're still with us. So we'd like to get your thoughts on another poll that we've got, which is now the other side of the coin. It's about embedding the platform and the challenge that you'd face. As we've mentioned, there is going to be a difference between the implementation and embedding. There will be some crossover, but we're keen to see what you guys think here.
That's right. So what is the biggest challenge when faced with the embedding of a new PPM platform now, as Craig just said? Again, we know you're probably at different stages of the journey, so answer it from yourself, from your organisation, where, from a very personal point of view. So is it still that lack of leadership support as you move through that journey? Is it people reverting back to the old ways of working? Maybe the platform doesn't align with the real work being done. Does it actually suit what you're doing? Is there training fatigue? Is there too much, too little, too inconsistent, whatever it might be? And again, or is it those benefits are just unclear for your organisation? So we'll see what it's looking like. Okay, so we have some clear leaders now. I hope you can. Right. Okay. So if you can't see those results, let me have a little look at these here. We have, at the moment, people reverting to the old ways of working is by far out there in front. We do have a couple of other options been clicked, though. One, unclear benefits of the tool, and another person has said that the platform doesn't align with the real work being done. That's a very interesting one. I'd love your thoughts on that, you two. And then one other person has also ticked lack of leadership support. So that I can understand that rings through from the implementation right through to the embedding. But yeah, what do you think about the platform not aligning with the real work being done?
No surprises there. As I said before, you'd be really surprised how often we see that happening when people are designing the tool in the first place. So absolutely, as we said, make sure you're involving your workforce in actually the design of the tool. Maybe get somebody in who's had nothing to do with the project to come in and do your testing. Really important as well, actually, that user testing. It's great to have people who've been involved the whole way through testing it, making sure it works. Get some people in there, some guinea pigs, like, does this actually do what it needs to do? You get your platform provider to do some testing and, completely cold. They don't know your processes. They don't know it, all of your internal methodologies as well as you guys do. And you'll be able to tell immediately whether someone could come in and start using the tool straight away. So that doesn't surprise me. That's a clear one for me.
Interesting. All right. Well, thank you very much, everybody.
So, culture change. There's a lot of things to talk through here, so we will try to keep it concise and to the point, so that we can make sure we get some time for questions at the end. There are a lot of things that can successfully drive culture change, and it's reinforcing the why. So reminding people of the value, having that routine, regular internal sessions, reminding them, comms going out all the time to ensure that they're aware of the why and that they're reminded of the why. The next one is all about leading from the top. Again, you'll notice some consistencies here. If you're not leading from the top, you're going to struggle to enforce that change. So ensuring that it's setting the tone for what you expect the organization to follow is really important.
Yeah, absolutely. Continuous improvement. We've talked about this a lot, and you will hear us repeating things all the time. This is not, these are probably not things that you guys don't know, but it's just putting them into, a discussion where we can give you some tips and some hints and tips. Keep your teams involved, not only during the implementation side of things, on an ongoing basis. Culture change isn't going to happen overnight. That's another thing to be aware of. So have that in mind before you start. It's the same thing as your leadership. Make sure your leadership are where they need to be. It's about taking that step back and go, we know we're not going to get there straight away, but these are the key steps we need to achieve over this time frame, and make them realistic. Don't expect it all to happen at once. And this is something really important to say, actually. The tool, whichever tool it is not going to solve your cultural problems as an organization. You have to use the tool to help manage that change. It's not going to come in and solve things overnight. Be aware of that and be realistic in your expectations of what you're going to achieve. And then use your champions and your end users, your super users. Create a culture where you have people who are championing the tool, and don't limit it to a small group of people. People are going to move on. People are going to move around the organization, which is great because they're going to take the platform with them. But make sure that you're training out a whole bunch of super users, that you've got people who are really involved and want to talk about and shout about how good the platform is.
Definitely. Another important one as well, keeping feedback loops open, making those mechanisms for communications that are there, they're visible, they're easy to access, they're not hidden behind convoluted processes in order to put those feedbacks in. That will allow you to continuously improve, and it will make sure that embedding is continuously to be as successful. If you lose sight of feedback, if you stop considering feedback, chances are you'll get to the end of it, and when you do eventually get there, you'll realize that you've branched off somewhere and you're not as aligned as you should be. Regular training opportunities, again, making sure that you have those opportunities to provide people with ample training and support on an ongoing basis. I've seen it before where sessions like Introduction to Project Management is there, because we often find project managers are not always project managers in the space that we're in, right? And they've been tasked to manage some work. So even down to those types of training opportunities for people is really useful too.
Communicate your successes. Again, we've said it before, we'll say it again. Share the stories of teams who are benefiting from the platform. Shout about, how well things are doing. You're going to generate that culture of, well, if they're all doing it, I need to be in on this. This is great. It's really supportive. It's really helpful. Shout about it as much as you can and as often as you can. And this is very dear to my heart, because this is exactly what I help our clients with. Make it part of your key performance metrics. So, think about what you're trying to achieve with the platform. Document that right at the very beginning. Measure the success using, proper performance metrics. How you wanted to save time. How much time are you saving? You wanted to, save yourself money. How much money are you saving? You wanted this number of reports to come out. How many reports are coming out? Make sure that you're measuring it, because then you can go back in, 6 months, 12 months and go, we wanted it to do this and it's done this, and that's great.
Exactly. Some direct correlations, right? Relationships.
Absolutely.
So before we go into some questions, there is a final poll that we'd like to take you through, and that's all about where you feel your organisation is in terms of readiness for culture change. So you can now see it coming up on your screen. We'd be really keen to see where you think you are from an honest and candid perspective, so that we can understand where you guys think you are. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. So yeah, we're just really interested in where you feel you are. So your readiness for culture change. So is your workforce just not really equipped? From listening to what we've spoken about today, do you think, oh gosh, we're just not there yet? Are you sort of just a bit unsure about what processes are needed or to be thought about beforehand? Have you already implemented, but there's a bit of resistance and not really, that culture change machine isn't really whirring in the way that you want to? Or are you properly aligned? You've got engaged users, everything's looking really positive. We'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, we'd be keen to get your thoughts from where you think you are from that culture change perspective, from the perspective of implementing and eventually embedding a PPM platform specifically.
Right. Well, we've got two very clear contenders here. The biggest one being we've implemented, but there's a little bit of resistance. I can imagine there are a few of you also saying that you're unsure what processes are needed. So maybe you're a little step before that. Yeah, very interesting. That looks like the two that have been the most popular on this one. So I'll close that poll now.
Laura, do we have anyone that said they're aligned and their users are engaged, so it's hunky-dory? Or is that
No.
not? No. Do you know what? That's not
No,
surprising. It was a bit of a leading question there, Laura, if I'm being honest, purely because if you're there, then you're probably not on this call, right? Because you've got all this information. And to be fair, if you're there, then you're probably not actively looking at continuous improvement. And there's always a cycle of things going great and then maybe things trailing off and sort of having to get that management in. So it's no surprise there.
I'm also not surprised that there's a few that have said we're unsure about what processes they're needing. Change management is, it's an industry all on its own, and it's very different, although aligns with project management. And I think it's something that's often forgotten when you're thinking about bringing in a platform. People are like, oh yeah, we can do the project. We've got project managers. We absolutely, we can get it built. And what's often missing is the change management piece. And it's something I would really, really recommend that you consider from the very beginning.
Definitely. Time for some questions with the few minutes that we've got left. Laura?
Okay, fab. So let's see what we've got. We have had one question in so far. Please do pop them into the Q&A if you can. So the question that's come through, how mature do our processes need to be before selecting a tool? So the person said if we're just starting out, do we need to define our processes before using a tool, or can we implement a new tool and processes at the same time? You might have covered a little bit of this. Do you want to go into that a little bit more?
Yeah, definitely. So I'll be keen to see what Tasha thinks about this as well, but it really doesn't matter exactly where you are from a maturity perspective, because there'll always be a starting point and a journey to go on. If you do have more mature processes, and if you're in a more mature organization, you may find that implementation process could be a little bit quicker, a little bit smoother, and the adoption could be a little bit better. If you are just starting out and you need to define processes, we do often find people that we speak to doing that hand in hand, solidifying those processes, that approach, alongside the implementation of a tool. So if you can be a little bit further along that journey from a maturity perspective, you're likely to have a slightly better time, if I'm being honest. But I don't think if you don't think you're that mature, it's definitely not a closed door that you need to wait to open.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree. The only thing I'd add to it is that all you need to do is consider your rollout process, because if you're bringing in a tool and a process at the same time, it's about making sure that you roll out the two hand in hand, and that you just take some extra time to think about, okay, so we were rolling out a new process and a new tool. That can often actually be beneficial because they're linked, and people aren't having to move from doing things the same methodology, the same processes, just from one way to another, which can often lead to resistance. If you're doing it in the way that you're bringing in your processes as well as the tool, you can do that. I think it's just about thinking about that training plan, thinking about your rollout plan and your change management plan, and use the tools that you have available. You know, think about all the things that you're doing.
Exactly. So it's part of the journey, and working on your processes is not going to end. So you're not going to implement a tool when your processes are done, they're in a great shape. There will be that continuous iterative process, but there's always a starting point, I think, is the final statement I'll make. You're not closing a door. There's not a lack of readiness from that perspective. You would just be better off if you were able to be in a slightly more mature, better perspective from a process perspective.
That sounds good. Yeah. So there haven't been any more questions so far. I do hope it's working for everybody. If it, oh, hang on, we have another one just come in. Okay, fab. All right. Okay. Here's another one here. So, if leadership is from the same person, thank you. If leadership could do one thing to help the success of the implementation, what would it be?
I think be invested, be present. There's nothing worse for me than having a leader that mandates something and then steps away, is difficult to speak to, is difficult to get that buy-in from. So if nothing else, be there, be invested. I would say that for me, if I had to pick one thing, that would be it.
For me, and this might be a bit of a wild card, I'm going to throw it out there though. I'm not necessarily saying that your leadership should get in and use the tool every day, but I really think it's really useful for leaders to know how it works, not the day-to-day processes, but to be able to go in and open up the tool, maybe look at a dashboard or a report, and actually actively be able to then promote it positively with some understanding of how it's working. I think actually great leaders for me are those that show and lead by doing. So I think that would be my one thing that I would say.
I think that's a great answer for that. Yeah, I fully support all of that. So there is a question that that we get a few times. I hope you don't mind me asking one, but this does come up a little bit. What signs would indicate that your organisation is embedding the PPM platform successfully rather than just implementing it and then stepping away? What are those key signs that you would look out for?
You look straight at me.
I did. I started with this, so I will pass the.
So for me, there's some obvious signs that you're getting regular, consistent, quality reporting. I mean, a PPM platform, let's be honest, yes, we need it for users to be using their day-to-day, doing their day-to-day management, all of that. But the key thing that the majority of our clients are looking for, and I would hazard a guess, the majority of you on the call are being asked about from your leadership is, we need to know this data at this point in time. And if the tool is providing that data consistently in a quality way and people are getting what they need out of it, then I say you're a long way to that being embedded.
And on top of that as well, you can quantify some of those benefits as well. So one of the big reasons why you're going to get a tool is maybe to save time, maybe to be more efficient. So there are some things you can start to understand from a user-based perspective. How much time on average are you spending writing progress reports and documentations and manually creating reports? Oh, maybe I spend 2 hours a week working for a board pack that I have to do on a monthly cycle. I've heard people say a day a week on average for a monthly reporting cycle with some big pieces of work. And then going back to them and understanding where are they at with that now? So how are they getting on from the metrics perspective? You might have some ROI that you're looking to attain as well. So another reason why we see people coming in to successfully embed a tool is because they're looking to maybe stop pet projects, maybe to be more efficient with their resources, and they can have numbers against it. If you stop pet projects, you can find that you might save some of that budget to free up to use elsewhere. If you're more efficiently using your resources time, you might be able to do some more stuff or spend more time doing more quality stuff from a project perspective. We often find project managers managing 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 projects at any one time. If you're more effective and more efficient in people's time, then you will find some tangible results from that perspective and the ROI side of things as well. I'm conscious that we're pushed for time. Is there anything you want to add, Tasha?
Just a final one from me. Positive affirmation from your users. If they're talking about the system positively, then, you know, more than negatively, you're always going to get some negativity. Let's be honest here. But if they're talking about it generally positively, then, you know, it's doing what it needs to do.
Love it. Love it. Right. I'm going to have to stop you guys now. It is time. Just a quick one to say thank you so much to everybody who joined today. This was actually our very first webinar in this series, so we really are thankful for you to join for joining. We'll be doing another one next month. It's also important to note that we will pop this on our website. If you want to refer back to it at any time, you can watch it on demand. Like I said, we'll be sending you some an email after the session with some information on that as well. And also do check out our new podcast. We have got a podcast called the PPM Playbook podcast that we launched in March. We are trying to get episodes out very regularly as well. And you can again find that on Spotify or head to our website and you can watch the YouTube episodes there. But thank you, Craig. Thank you, Tasha. Thank you again, everybody. Yeah, we'd appreciate your feedback as well. So do get in touch. Thank you, everybody, and see you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.